This is a fan fiction about Bakugo and his childhood best friend who is also enrolled to UA Hero course. But their feelings begin to change when Bakugo starts dating the sister of Pro Hero Edgeshot.
You were my best, you were my best friend.
Book 1 of 5, a prologue on their friendship. For 3 years, Takida lived in a dark, stinky warehouse, enslaved by the people who bought her from her mother when she was just a year old. She watched them mix and sell cheap drugs on the streets. It was her salvation when the warehouse was finally ambushed by the police. She was then dropped off in a small and shoddy orphanage with 20 children who didn't have anywhere to go. Eating 1 meal a day, sleeping on a hard pallet covered with a blanket, and a once-a-week freezing bath was already like a dream come true for Takida. After 3 weeks, an old lady came and talked to her. She said something about living with her and that their quirks both had something to do with water. So once the papers were out, Takida will be taking on her new last name, Mizuyo. After that talk, she was instructed to pack all her things, which basically consisted of only 2 sets of clothes, the one she wore and an alternate one. The old lady's name was Nana Mizuyo. For Takida, she was an angel, and living with her was like heaven. She never thought that her life would still improve after staying in the orphanage. Now she stayed in a 2-bedroom, 10-story apartment. She had her own room, a bed, a blanket, and a pillow. Yes, a pillow. The first time Takida saw it, she was speechless. Her face was emotionless. She had no idea how to react, afraid that if she made any sudden movements, then she might wake up from this dream. I'm not sure of the things you like. Later on, we could go shopping, so you could pick your own stuff. Nana broke the silence. That was 2 months ago, and that 2 months went by quickly. They were so busy doing everything together, from house chores to buying groceries. She was also homeschooled by Nana every day, so she could enter kindergarten by the coming school year. Today, they walked towards the nearby village where the Bakugos live. Nana had been teaching music to their son Katsuki every Wednesday and Friday. But since she adopted Takida, they temporarily halted the lessons for 2 months. Hello, Katsuki. Did you miss me? Nana greeted this 5-year-old boy with ash-blonde spiky hair. Katsuki shrugged his shoulders as if saying yes and no at the same time. Takida, this is Katsuki. Katsuki, Takida. Takida just stared at him. He stared right back. They said and did nothing. They just stared. He broke the staring contest by shrugging again, then walked towards the piano where they do their music classes. Takida then sat on the floor by the sofa table and took out her workbooks. She had a lot of assignments to complete as Nana was really drilling her. Takida and Katsuki never talked. After each class, Katsuki would always go outside to play with his friends or run off somewhere else. It was obvious that music class was something only his mother wanted. He had no interest in it. But for someone who was forced to do it, he was pretty good, and Takida liked studying while listening to his music. On the 3rd week of going to their house, Mrs. Bakugo asked Nana to help her bake cookies for an outreach program. So after music class, she asked Katsuki to buy some ingredients. Katsuki, I need you to quickly get me a pack of baking powder at the store. And why don't you bring Takida with you? She told him. To which Katsuki replied with, Fine, is that all? The store nearby didn't have baking powder. The 2nd and the 3rd nearby stores didn't have it as well. Takida could already hear Katsuki complaining under his breath, but they still didn't talk to each other. After walking for another 15 minutes, they were finally successful. As they were leaving, a kid ran between them and knocked Takida from her back, making her fall. The kid had no plans of looking back to check on her, so Katsuki took a step forward and yelled, "Hey! The least you could do is apologize!" As soon as he said that, another kid ran from behind and knocked him down as well. "You're blocking the way. You apologize."
Ha! I didn't bump into you losers! You are the ones who bumped into me!
The two kids were 3 to 4 years older than Takida and Katsuki, and were using their builds to intimidate them too. They were towering both of them who were still on the floor. The first kid picked up their grocery and dangled it in front of them. "You better go back inside and buy another of this, because you won't be getting this back," he said and gave an evil laugh. Katsuki made small flaring puffs from both his palms and faced it towards the two big kids to obstruct their visions. He then grabbed his baking powder and reached for Takida's hands. "Let's go," he said. Takida took his hand to stand. She then pulled some whip-like water from her back and threw it on the floor towards the two kids to make them slip. Then they ran. Katsuki was holding his plastic purchase on his left and Takida's hand on his right. Before they turned on the corner, they saw that the two kids were up on their feet and were ready to chase them again. Takida tugged Katsuki and led him to the park by the corner. "Come on!" They started climbing on one of the trees. Once on top, they looked at the boys emerging from the corner until they reached the bottom of the tree where Katsuki and Takida were. They were looking left and right vigorously. Finally, they ran up, still looking for them. When they were no longer in sight, the two let out a deep breath, looked at each other, and laughed. "So you know how to laugh," Katsuki grinned at Takida. Takida paused and realized that she was indeed laughing, a bit confused and surprised. "I didn't know either. That was the first time I laughed." Katsuki paused, trying to absorb what she just said. "First time to laugh?" She nodded. Again they looked at each other, and with a loss of words, they ended up laughing again. They were reliving their adventure all the way home. Katsuki was hyped. "They didn't stand a chance against my explosion in your water. I'm letting you join my hero agency,
Forward
Bakugo."
march, and here we go! Members of the agency, Bakugo!
"What took you so long?" Mrs. Bakugo yelled when the two of them finally entered the kitchen. But instead of answering, Bakugo dropped the grocery on the counter and ran to the garage while pulling Takida with him. "Your knees are bleeding," Katsuki pointed at Takida. Takida, who was used to being beaten at the warehouse, didn't see any concern over it. "It's just a scratch." "I'll get the meds. Wait here." Katsuki stood on one of the stools and reached for the cabinet. "This will sting a bit." He then dabbed some medicines on her knee. Takida watched him clean up her wounds. For a boy who was always loud and angry, he was really gentle with her. And aside from Nana, no one had ever showed Takida any care and kindness. So looking at this red-eyed boy who stood up for her earlier and now mending her wounds, Takida told herself, "He is going to be my bestest friend."
And now I know that family is you.
Middle school.
Katsuki was a gifted child, but he didn't take his gifts for granted. He worked and studied hard. Whatever challenge was given to him, he made sure he gave his best. He was arrogant and loud-mouthed. Well, like his mom. The two became great friends. They may be on different school levels, Takida being a year younger, but one would always see them together after school. Even long after the music lessons, the two still hang out. They would study together during exams, with Bakugo being her go-to tutor if needed. But he never made it easy for her. He never spoon-fed her with notes the previous years. And when they play, whether it's a video game or a play of tag, he didn't go easy on her just because she was a girl. And she didn't make it easy on him either. Whenever they would go camping, he knew how much she hated ghost stories, and so, of course, he told lots of it during campfires just to mess with her. And most importantly, they both liked tinkering with what they can do with their quirks. With Bakugo's explosive personality, Takida learned to move out of her shell as well. But contrary to Bakugo's arrogant ways, Takida was cheerful and bubbly, no traces of the nightmarish childhood she just experienced. She was also friends with everyone. Another kid she grew fond of was Izuku Midoriya, who kept following Bakugo.
When I get mine, I hope it's just as cool!
She was on her way to meet Bakugo when she saw Izuku picking up a drowned notebook. Kachan? She suspected. Yeah, he said I should stop dreaming on becoming a hero because I am quirkless.
It's just that I've wanted to be a hero since I was little. I may not have a quirk, but I can still try my hardest, can I?
Don't listen to him. He can be a pain sometimes. Takida told Izuku as she absorbed the water from the notebook using her quirk. Here, it's dry now, but you need to rewrite some letters that got smudgy. While Izuku checked on his hero notes, Takida took both his hands and said, I don't think being a hero is 100% based on quirks. She remembered Nana and Bakugo saving her from the darkness, and no quirks were involved for her to call them her heroes. What's inside your heart has a lot to do about it too, Takida continued. They smiled and Izuku felt the hope rise up inside him again. You're right. I can save people even without a quirk, and that's what I'm going to do, he said. As Takida caught up with Bakugo on his way home, she yelled,
What?
Bakugo replied irritably, knowing too well that her tone of voice was saying he did something wrong. Will you stop pestering Izuku?
Nah! Dick!
Bakugo exploded. He's the one pestering me. I ran away from him and he keeps running back, saying he's gonna be a hero. What does he think? My quirk is a joke? Takida rolled her eyes and gave a loud sigh. She was not hiding her irritation from Bakugo. You know, I don't like talking to you right now. Well, I don't like to talk to you too, he said back. Fine, she gritted her teeth. Don't you dare forget to bring the art stuff I'm borrowing from you tomorrow. I won't, he yelled back as he strode off to go home. Takida went on to the opposite direction. The next day, they walked to school together like nothing happened. Here's the box of colored pens you're borrowing. Bakugo handed her the pens. Oh, thanks! I made you salmon maki. Takida replied, then gave him a bento box.
High school in UA. Bakugo is now second year in UA, Mizuyo first year. Please note that I expanded the anime storyline, wherein seasons 1 to 3 was Bakugo's first year in UA, and seasons 4 to 7, or up to End of War, was his second year in UA.
It was the first week of April and the start of a new school year. Class 1A was now on their second year as Class 2A. So many things happened in their first year in school. They had the USJ incident, kidnapping of Bakugo, and the Camino incident.
13. Get them out of here, and alert the main campus.
All Might had also retired from being a pro hero and was now a full-time teacher in UA. He and Bakugo now also trained Deku's inherited quirk to make him familiar with it.
Things aren't gonna be the same though, Deku. You got that? I'll go higher than even you, Chosen One.
And I guess I'll just have to be better than that.
Damn it, nerd! I just said I was gonna be the one to surpass you!
They've become proper rivals now, in a way that they weren't before.
The secret between me and All Might became a secret the three of us shared.
The UA students were coming back to school a week early so they could settle in their dorms. The UA had decided to retain the dorm systems, since 85% of their students were not from the area and were renting in the city anyway. The 15% who lived nearby consented that their kids will stay in the in-house dorms as well. They were free to go out anyway, as long as they were back before the daily curfew of 9 p.m. The third and second years were asked to start moving in on Monday, and the freshmen by Wednesday. In the late afternoon on Monday, Bakugo and the rest of Class 2A gathered at the common area. They were almost done with their transfer and their dinner. "Midoriya, you seem pretty excited," Ida noticed. Since they're all seated there, everyone waited for his reply. "You excited to see Sensei Midnight?" Mineta teased him. "I'm excited to see all our teachers," Izuku smiled. "But I'm extra happy because tomorrow, Kachan's childhood best friend will be coming here at UA as a freshman."
You're even more of an idiot than I realized!
"You said it so yourself. My best friend. Then why do you seem more excited than me?" Izuku just made his smile bigger, which irritated Bakugo more. "Childhood friend?" Kaminari explained. "Must be as explosive as you are." Kirishima laughed and said, "I'm kinda scared." You could hear the others chattering about it too. "Yeah, must be as brutal too. Why is Midoriya excited? Is Bakugo not enough for him? And what's wrong with the friends he likes? I think this friend's gonna be huge and intimidating,"
Yeah, whatever.
Bakugo said as he went to the sink to wash his own plate. The class had assigned cleaners every day for the common areas and stuff. "I'm gonna go ahead with Bakugo too," Kirishima said as he followed Bakugo to the sink. "Me too," Kaminari said. "Hold it right there," Sarah said and pulled Denki. "We're on dishes tonight." The next day, Izuku waited near school entrance to meet Takida. The rest of the class 2A were there too. They were obviously curious and excited to see how scared his childhood best friend was.
Yeah, right, I'm stupid excited!
Finally, they saw Bakugo walking back to campus. Beside him was a gigantic boy that looked like Sensei Hound Dog himself. "I told you he's gonna be scary," Mina said. Momo's eyes widened and covered her mouth in disbelief. "We're seriously gonna hang out with that dude?" Kaminari trembled. "Ha! He's gonna eat you alive, Kaminari," Kirishima joked. "Izuku!" A blue-haired, blue-eyed girl exclaimed and ran towards Izuku. "I made it! I'm finally here at UA with you and Kachan." Everybody's jaw dropped. Mineta rubbed his eyes in disbelief. Bakugo's best friend is a girl? A girl who's got very angelic voice and face? Mineta's eyes were about to fall out. "This can't be happening." "I never doubted you, Takida." Izuku smiled, not minding the reactions of his classmates. "I'm so happy that you're here now. Since we took the dorm system last year, I seldom saw you, and now we could see each other every day." "You're Kachan's childhood friend?" Denki approached her as he could not contain his awe. Takida finally looked behind Izuku and noticed everyone in Class 2A. "Oh, hi there, guys. I'm Mizuyo Takida. I'm so happy to finally meet all of you. Man, I'm a fan of each and every one of you. I watched the UA tournament last year and you were all amazing," she started babbling. Nobody was able to reply as they have not recovered yet from the shock, except Shoto, who did not seem bothered at all.
Thank you.
He said, "Bakugo beat me though, on the one-on-one tournament." Takida laughed, "But Kachan's been saying he didn't win at all." Then finally, Bakugo yelled,
We have a lot of work to do.
"Yeah, I'm coming," Takida replied. "I'll see you all around then." Takida then faced Izuku and gave him a bento. "Before I forget, I brought you your favorite pork cutlet. It's been a while since I made one for you." "Arigato, Takida," Izuku bowed. She then left with Bakugo. "Hey, we're done with our rooms. We could help bring your stuff to your dorm," Kirishima volunteered. "Yeah, and do you still have extra of that pork cutlet? 'Cause it made me hungry," Kaminari added.
A few months after, sometime in August of the same school year.
So it's this Friday after class? So I can fix my schedule. Bakugo confirmed with Takida. Yup, I'm so excited, but I'm super nervous too. What if she doesn't like me? Or maybe she doesn't. Because why would she leave me in the first place, right? Stop saying things like that. Bakugo scolded her. If there's anyone who should be nervous, it should be her. That darn woman should be the one worrying if you'd want her back in your life. Takida exhaled nervously. Nana called her last week and said that her biological mother had made contact with the orphanage where Takida used to stay. They said that she wanted to meet Takida. Nana told her it was her decision if she wanted to reunite. When Friday morning came, Takida ran to Bakugo and caught him just as he was exiting their dorm building. Kachan, our meeting time has been moved to 1 p.m. 1 o'clock? Bakugo shouted. I have class. I doubt if Eraserhead will allow me. I know that. That's why I'm so nervous, Takida said. I didn't consider where we will go because I knew you'd be coming and you'd know what to do, so now I'm clueless. Chill it, Kida, he instructed. Doesn't matter where you go. Would you still be meeting her at the same station? Yes. Okay. Walk with us to class. You're off from school this morning? The whole day? She replied. There, I sent you a map. Check your phone. Bagu's phone kept vibrating while in class. He knew it was Takida messaging. Should I wear my uniform? Is red or white top better? But you know how clumsy I eat. I might spill food on my clothes. If I wear black, it looks like I'm mourning. I should appear excited, right? I don't even know how to address her. Should I tie my hair? Because if not, I'll fidget it if it's loose. He wanted to reply with, just do whichever. But knowing how stressed out she was, he didn't want to add to it. So he patiently answered her. Wear light blue to match your eyes. Just bring a jacket in case you mess your shirt with food. Call her ma'am till she tells you how to address her. Leave your hair untied. Go ahead, fidget it. Finally, the bell rang to end the morning classes. He looked at his phone as it had been quiet for a good 1 hour now. She will be meeting the woman at 1 p.m., and so she left at 10 a.m. The trip would take her 1.5 hours only, but she wanted to be early. He texted her, but she didn't reply. He thought very deeply for a while, then approached Sensei Aizawa. Sensei. Yes, Bakugo? Aizawa replied without taking his eyes off the papers submitted by the class. I need to be excused for classes later. There's something important I need to check into, Bakugo said. If this is about Mizuyo, the answer is no. She can very well take care of herself. Aizawa replied, his head still bent on the papers. Bakugo paused a second and asked again. I would like to ask if you could reconsider. Aizawa finally lifted his head and sighed at the sight of Bakugo. This kid had always been loud, but right now he seemed defiant, but calm. He was also not the kind to want to miss out on anything in class, as it may mean that he will be behind everyone else. So this may be really important to him. All right, Aizawa finally said. Bakugo started to flee. Wait, I'm not done. Bakugo halted and looked back at Aizawa. Make sure to catch up. You cannot use your weekend work study as an excuse for not being updated.
That's all. Go.
Bakugo nodded and off he went. No running in the hallway, Bakugo! Ida yelled as Bakugo ran past him, but it fell on deaf ears. What's up with him? Kaminari asked Kirishima. Beats me. Bakugo didn't bother changing. He went straight to the train station heading to Nayoga. If he wanted to support Takida, then he should be there as early as he could. At this rate, he will reach their meeting place at 1:45. He will be 45 minutes late. But that would actually be good, he thought, because they'd have time for themselves already. Plus, if he sees Takida settled, then he planned to stay a few good meters away and just let them be until it's time to go back. He had known Takida to be the most collected person. She could smile brightly even if her heart was exploding already. But she was very giddy this morning. Her messages were also irrelevant. She was obviously not herself. The next station is Nayoga, the train announced. He rushed up the stairs towards the Nayoga cable car station. That was where they will meet. It was situated just outside the train exit at the opposite road. From the lower ground, he could hear that it was starting to rain outside.
Damn it.
He reached for his phone as he stepped on the top level of the stairs. Takida still had not read his messages. When he looked across the street by the cable car station, he easily saw Takida. She was wearing a pale blue top and a jacket knotted on her waist. She was holding a small bouquet of flowers. And she was alone. He kept his phone and hurriedly crossed the street. She was getting wet by the rain, but she didn't care. Or maybe she didn't notice it was raining. Her eyes were locked on the railway, perhaps still hoping that the woman would show up. She wasn't crying. Her face was blank. He took off his school jacket and placed it over her head and her shoulders. She didn't seem surprised when he turned her to face him. She didn't look up either. Instead, she bowed her head and stared at her shoes. She has bowed so low that Bakugo could only see the top of her head. He knew that tears started falling on her cheeks already, but you would hear nothing. Bakugo just saw her shoulders go up and down as she sniffed. She was trembling, but she made no sound. It was like the day when they were kids, when he saw the scars on her back. She told him about her childhood. She cried like this too. No sound. He didn't want to think it was because she gets beaten more whenever she was heard crying during her days at the warehouse. He didn't know how to react back then. He ended up yelling for her to stop crying, and that made her longer to calm down. He still didn't know how to comfort her now, but he didn't think shouting was the right way either. So they just stood there, for what it seemed like forever. Finally, Takida lifted her head, her cheeks wet with tears. I'm sorry. I know you hate rain. Bakugo looked at her, wiped her tears, and said, Let's go. They went to the nearest clothes store in the area and bought themselves some dry shirts. Let's have lunch first, Bakugo said, although he was not really hungry. But at that moment, he just didn't want to leave yet. He didn't want Takida to go back to school feeling and looking horrible. After eating, Bakugo again made some excuses about going to this place, and then this place, and then this place. Towards the late afternoon, just before they leave Nayoga City, they rode a Ferris wheel. Takida knew what Bakugo was doing. He was trying to keep her mind off her mother. Of course, she had not forgotten what happened early that day. No child ever would. She felt cheated and abandoned. But the whole afternoon, Bakugo never forced her to smile or talk. He just walked with her. Whenever their eyes would meet, he would just look back with soft eyes. He didn't ask anything. He was never the kind to ask too many questions. And she can't ignore the effort and patience that Bakugo was showing her and making her feel. I know what you're doing, you know, she told him as she looked at the dark sky. They are now at the highest point of the Ferris wheel. The moon was not visible and there were no stars. It stopped raining, but the dark rain clouds were still in the sky. You do? He asked, because I sure as hell don't know what I'm doing. Takida gave a small laugh. He truly sounded irritated at himself, most likely thinking that he was completely useless to her at this time. She continued her gaze at the black sky. There are no stars in Nayoga tonight. Yet somehow, it doesn't feel so dark and sad. Slowly, she looked at Bakugo, waited for him to look at her too, and then said, Thanks for being here, Kachan. Back at the school, Aizawa and Cementos were waiting by the teacher's deck where they could see Bakugo and Mizuyo enter the school grounds. It was 9:15 and the two were preparing to give the kids some scolding for returning past their curfew. Cementos took a deep breath and said, I don't think there's a need to end her day with some punishment, he rationalized. You handle Bakugo. He is your student, and he is the senior here. He should have been in charge. I'll therefore leave this matter to you. Good night, Shota. Aizawa knew Cementos would do this. He really was soft-hearted despite his quirk. So he headed towards Class 2A's dorm and waited for his own student. But before he could say anything, Bakugo said, I'm aware it's past curfew. I will accept any sanctions. Make it double. I'll take Mizuyo's as well. It wasn't her fault for coming back late. Despite not showing any change in expression, Aizawa felt really taken aback. Bakugo was making this easy for him. He actually felt guilty to penalize him double for a 15-minute delay. But rules are rules, he said. Well, I hope your overstaying in Nayoga was worth it. It was, Bakugo replied. Then his malleable features disappeared. The old woman didn't even show up. Aizawa's expression still didn't change. I see. Go inside now. I instructed your class rep to give you all your makeup worksheets. Bakugo nodded and went in.
Early January. Same school year. Bakugo still in second year and Mizuyo in first year.
How long will Nana be in Kiba? Bakugo asked Takida when they got back to school after the holidays. Nana had a slip accident, so she decided to stay temporarily in an old people institution in Kiba City for her therapy. Hopefully she'll be back in time for the summer vacation, Takida said. The next day, one of Takida's worst nightmare happened. Right after dinner, the news came up in TV. We are live today here in Kiba City. Nomus that appeared last month is seen making an uproar again. Bakugo stood up from the dining table to watch. Kaminari increased the volume of the TV to catch all the details. The reporter was in a helicopter and was showing chaos and great devastation. It was like deja vu to when Endeavor and Hawks fought off Anomu in Kyushu last month. The camera rotated to pan out the damage. It caught one Nomu who was standing on top of a mid-rise building. Bakugo recognized it right away. It was the institution Nana was staying at. Bakugo wasted no time. He dashed for the door and ran as fast as he could to Takida's dorm. His heart was beating so fast, and it wasn't because of the running, but rather the thought of Nana and Anomu in one place. He banged open the door in Takida's dorm. Nobody noticed him, as everyone was fixed on the TV watching the live news. He saw Takida standing behind the couch. Both her hands were clenched close. As Bakugo took the steps to reach Takida, the Nomu standing on Nana's building jumped up so high. It was just seconds, but it felt like eternity watching it go back down from where it jumped. Bakugo expected the worst. He grabbed Takida and pulled her to face him. As if to shield her from what's about to happen, he pushed her head down to him and pinned it under his neck, just as the Nobu crashed the building under its foot. Takida didn't have to see it to know what happened. The sounds of crumbling stones and people yelling told her in graphics exactly what happened. Bakugo heard Takida gasp and froze. He gritted his teeth. Now was not the time to go on a rampage. He needed to calm down, for Takida at least, but he honestly didn't know what to do. Her classmates looked at them with horror. They didn't know what to do as well. They all just froze as the Nomu continued to stomp on the building, leaving no walls undemolished. One of her classmates grabbed the remote control and turned the TV off. Then everything went silent. That night, Cementos, Takida's homeroom teacher, advised her that they'll be going to Kibu City first thing in the morning. Bakugo went to the faculty to ask permission again from Aizawa if he could join Takida, since Nana was the only family she got. But before he could say a thing, Aizawa was already giving him instructions. You will be joining Cemento-san, All Might, and Mizuyo Takida. We want to hope, but the reports did say that casualty was 99%. He placed his hand on his shoulder and said, I'm counting on you, Bakugo. The last words were open-ended, but he knew what Aizawa meant. It was a silent trip to Kibu. The building site was a total distraction. The bodies were cremated to minimize the pain of the families, but their clothes or whatever belongings that could identify them lined next to the urn. It wasn't long before they found Nana's jar. I'm really sorry, Mizuyo Shonen, their teachers said. Takida had not spoken a word nor shed a tear since after last night. I have talked to my mom, and she'll be staying in our house for the meantime, Sensei, Bakugo said. When they reached the Bakugo's house, Mitsuki ran towards Takida and hugged her tight. She led her to the guest room that she prepared. This will now be your room for as long as you need it. Takida just nodded and still said nothing. Bakugo looked at the guest room and it felt gloomy. You can take my room. You'll be more comfortable there, he said. He thought that since they'd been playing there when they were kids, then it should at least won't make her feel so out of home. Takida placed the urn by the bedside table and lied down. Bakugo stayed by the door and stared at her for a few more minutes before quietly leaving. He headed down the living room to get instructions for the next days from Cementos and All Might. Principal Nezu recommends that Mizuyo take a week off from school so she could grieve, Cementos told Mr. and Mrs. Bakugo. He also requests if your son could stay for emotional support. Aizawa has made homeworks to be sent here for Bakugo. He also prepared special lessons when he comes back. After settling the arrangements, Cementos and All Might bowed at the family and bid them farewell. On behalf of the school, we thank you for taking care of our student at her most difficult time. Please let us know how we could be of any help. It was mid-afternoon when Cementos and All Might left. Bakugo went up to his room to check on Takida. She was sleeping, but her cheeks had trickles of dried tears. Bakugo sat on the floor next to his bed. Both of them had not slept a wink since the night of the attack. He rested his back on the bed frame and looked at the open balcony door of his room, watching the sun turn orange. He could not imagine how difficult this could be for Takida. Just a few months ago, her biological mother stood her up, and now the mother she considered in her heart was gone. He closed his eyes for a moment, but the next time he opened it, the sky had turned starry dark already. He had a blanket over him as well. The balcony door was still open. He turned and saw the bed empty. Kida? I'm outside, Kida replied. Her voice came outside from the balcony. Bakugo went over and saw her sitting with her hugging her bent-up legs. How are you? He asked. Still in denial? She surprisingly sounded calm. Just yesterday I was talking to her over the phone, and now I will never hear her voice again. That was the only conversation they had that night.
When the sun sets, I say it again, 'cause I'm not ready for another dating. Every waking moment weighs heavy on my soul. Memories escape you, but I won't let them go.
The next day, they went for a solemn ceremony to bid Nana farewell. Izuku and Inko attended too. After that, they went to Mizuyo's apartment to get Nana and Takida's things. There wasn't much, since Nana brought most of hers in Kibu, while Takida's were in the dorm already. It was a quick trip, and soon they were back at the Bakugos. Over dinner, Mrs. Bakugo relayed to Kida the recommendations of Principal Nezu and reiterated that this was a house she could always come home to. Takida was very grateful to everyone, but she didn't avail the 1 week off recommendation. I am ready to go back to school tomorrow. You don't have to rush, Takida, Mitsuki said. We all know this is not easy. Give yourself time. Takida smiled. But Nana would be very disappointed in me if I waste my time crying over something I can't change. She'd want me to stand up and do something over the things I have control of. She calmly explained further. Being in school will make me a better hero, preventing tragedies like this to happen to other people. Yes, that is what Nana would want me to do.
But I'm gonna get through this. It's gonna get better. I can feel the sun rising. It's rising. I'm gonna get stronger. The day is not over. I can feel the sun shining, shining on my face. And it's gonna be okay.
The couple respected her decision. So the next day, Bakugo and Mizuyo took the train back to school. Before they separated at the hallway to go to their respective classrooms, Bakugo faced her with a determined look. Let's do what Nana said. Let's be great heroes and win over these villains.
The villains are as good as dead!
Takida nodded with the same committed look. It was a pact they intend to fulfill, no matter what. End of Book 1. The next books are set after the war. The heroes won, but many lives were lost, including Pro Hero Edgeshot. But this is also the beginning where Bakugo and Takida's friendship gets shaken when he starts going out with Edgeshot's sister, who also enrolled in UA. Book 2. A Cloud of Confusion. This is set after the war with All for One. Bakugo and Mizuyo took to heart the pact they made when Nana died. It was not an easy journey, but with everyone's teamwork, they finally defeated All for One. Shigaraki and Dabi were placed in a rehabilitation center for super powerful villains. Its security was same as Tarotaro's. Many pro heroes were lost. Bakugo almost died, but Edgeshot and Best Genies made sure that didn't happen. In the end, the hope of a new beginning for Japan rose.
Hold on to my hand as we go along to the end of this road.
People immediately started rebuilding. No recognition ceremonies were held because despite the victory, so much had been lost as well. I owe your brother my life, Bakugo said as he knelt and bowed down in front of Edgeshot's two sisters, Nina and Enya Kamihara. Bakugo and his parents, along with Takida, attended Edgeshot's final visitation. The two sisters also knelt and bowed down in front of Bakugo. And we all owe our lives to you, Bakugo Katsuki, Nina, the eldest sister, said. She held his hands and they both stood up. My brother had always been a level-headed man. Even in the midst of battle, he knew exactly what he needed to do. He was intelligent and he was strong. But at that moment, he knew it was you who could change the course of the tidings. He believed that the best way he could contribute to end this war was by keeping you alive. Don't get me wrong, my brother's quirk is powerful, but it was not well matched with the villain. So he had two choices: to die without defeating the enemy, or to die giving everyone a chance to win this war. He picked the latter. My sister and I are sad, but we are happy. Happy because he followed through with his dream of peace.
weighs heavy on my soul. Memories escape you, but I won't let them go. If this is our longest goodbye, there won't be a day I won't try to carry you. I'll keep my heart by your side.
This may sound a bit harsh, but just so you don't blame yourself. Don't think of it as my brother doing it for you. Instead, he did it for everyone who is alive today. He did it for everyone to have a future. Bakugo took her words to heart. She was very sincere and comforting. At the end of the ceremony, Bakugo and Takida sat outside to wait for his parents. Hi. They were greeted by Edgeshot's youngest sister, Enya Kamihara. I'm sorry I wasn't able to say anything earlier. Takida and Bakugo both stood up to acknowledge her. I'll give you two some space, Takida said, thinking Enya might want to talk to Bakugo privately. Oh, it's okay. You don't have to leave, Enya said. You are Mizuyo, right? Takida nodded. I use my quirk for healing, not really for hero stuff, Enya started. But I have always read articles of pro heroes in action, and I am just amazed at how brave you all are. I also watch a lot of documentaries about the war and the UA students who faced the villain head on, but I never really absorbed the fact that you're just the same age as me. I guess I just wanted to say thank you. You really didn't have the obligation to fight in the war, and yet you all did willingly. Speaks so much of how selfless you all are, and it gives me comfort that these are the people who fought alongside my brother. She ended the conversation by saying, I have enrolled in UA sport class this school year. I'll see you both there. She smiled and ran back inside. Contrary to some people's beliefs, all students were still expected to go back to school after the rehabilitation. But instead of starting the school year by April, it commenced in August, as they needed to rebuild the UA structures. Even the heroes who fought all for one head-on were not exempted from going back to school. Principal Nezu said that battling and fighting was not the only future for pro heroes. They still have other subjects to learn in order to run a full hero agency. By this school year, Bakugo was now on his third year and Takida on her second year. Welcome back to UA, you all! Kaminari greeted as he shoulder-hugged Takida and Kirishima, who were walking with Bakugo and Zero towards school.
Good to see you back, Super!
I made a manly schedule for us so we could max out our learnings this year, Kirishima said and held out a card with so many erasures as though he could not really decide.
Let's go kick some ass!
Bakugo checked it and hissed.
That's exactly the same schedule as last year, and you morons don't always show up.
Well, things were kinda weird last year, Kaminari explained. There were a lot of stressors, but this time we're gonna stick to it.
Yeah, whatever.
Bakugo said, not really believing him.
Hi, Katsuki.
Everyone turned when they heard someone call Bakugo by his first name. Kamihara greeted Bakugo, but it was Takida who replied. So you did enroll in UA? I did, Kamihara smiled. Bakugo introduced everyone. You know Kida?
I'm Denki Kaminari.
Hey, I'm Israel Kirishima. Hi, I'm Hanta Sero.
Oh, I know everyone. I told you. I read everything I got my hands on about the heroes who fought in the war. She smiled sweetly at everyone. I'm Enya Kamihara. She turned her gaze back to Bakugo. I'm in third year as well under support course. But I never thought your school was this big. I've been going around campus for almost half an hour now. Would it be a bother if I ask you to show me where support courses classrooms are? Bakugo hesitantly answered, Okay. Kaminari was too stunned to say anything as he looked at the back of the two walking ahead of them disappear in the crowd. Enya Kamihara. Sarah repeated her name. It sounded familiar. She is Pro Hero Edgeshot's sister, Takida said cheerfully. Oh yeah, Kirishima said. I remember her during the final ceremony a few months back. So, did Kachan just walk a girl to her class? Kaminari smiled mischievously.
That's no fair.
What's the big deal? Takida looked at Denki, confused. He walks me to class. Well, yeah, but you're Takida. Sarah chuckled. Don't get ahead of yourself, Kaminari. Why don't you walk Jiru to class? Jiru? Denki? Takida pretended to look surprised, then laughed because Kaminari never took the guts to tell Jiro his feelings. In UA, lunchtime was different for each year level so as not to cramp the cafeteria, except Fridays, when everyone had the same schedule.
Oh yeah, it's Bento Box Friday!
Kaminari exclaimed as he took all the bento boxes made by Takida. It had been a habit that Takida prepared one bento box for each of them, containing different kinds of their favorite makis every last Friday of the month. One for you, and you, and you. Takida rationed the boxes.
It's so good! I can't get enough!
My stomach is so happy right now.
And this one's for Kachan. Where is he anyway? She asked as she sat down. He went to line up for ice cream. Kirishima said absent-mindedly as he devoured his food. Ice cream? He doesn't like ice cream, Takida said, confused. He doesn't, but somebody does.
Denki smiled and pointed his finger towards the incoming Kamihara and Bakugo, who was shoving the crowd out of his way.
Get out of my way now before I set you on fire!
I swear I am going to blow up that section for serving so slow. 10 minutes to scoop one goddamn ice cream into a cup, he complained.
Enya giggled beside him. Takida was a bit surprised that Kamihara was actually eating with them. Hi, Kamihara. I'm glad you could join us for lunch. Oh, she's been eating with us since last week, Kirishima said. But last Friday, oh, you were at USJ, so you didn't know. Oh, Takida said. I could have made an extra bento. It's okay, Kamihara said. Although this looks delicious. Here, you can have mine. Bakugo offered his. Kira doesn't really cook well, but she does make decent makis.
Hey, that sounded like an insult.
Just stating a fact, Bakugo said. Kamihara took one and her eyes gleamed. They're even more delicious than they look. Then she took another piece and ate it. I'm glad you liked it, Takida said and started eating her own set as well.
Hey, Takida, are you still gonna eat that?
Kaminari pointed at her remaining makis. Of course, I just started eating Denki. You know, you should lessen your rice intake, Kaminari said. The ladies I know eat a lot less. Just look at Kamihara. Then he pointed at Enya. Go tell her, Kachan, he continued. Why? Bakugo almost kicked Denki. Well, she only listens to you, Denki replied, misunderstanding Bakugo.
I meant, why do I have to tell her to eat less? Because she eats twice as much as I do. And she works out twice as much as you do, Bakugo resorted. Kaminari was about to say something more, but Bakugo stopped him.
Shut up! Why you always gotta sound so mad?
Takida stuck her tongue out at Denki and placed one big maki in her mouth.
Ooh, yummy!
Denki melted, obviously failing at getting more makis from Mizuyo. Sarah laughed at him. You should have just asked her for some, you know. Then you wouldn't have been lectured. The signal bell that class will start in 5 minutes rang loudly in the cafeteria. Students stood up and returned their trays to the station. Kida, Bakugo called her.
About next week. I won't be able to go to our Tuesday and Thursday quirk training.
Oh, that's okay, Takida answered. Bakugo nodded. But as it turned out, it was not just going to be that week, but for so many succeeding weeks to come. Dress up, let's go to the mall. Bakugo called Takida over the phone one weekend. And before she could even answer, he continued, "Front gate 30 minutes, bye." Bakugo was already by the school gate when she got there. "Where are the others?" Takida asked. "They'll just fool around if you bring them. Besides, they won't be of help anyway," he replied. "Help with what?" Takida asked. "We're mauling. It's not as if we're out on a mission." And as expected, Bakugo didn't reply. Once they reached the mall, Takida still had no idea what they'll be doing or buying.
Then they went to the perfume section, where he finally said, "I'm buying Enya a lavender cologne. So, where do we go from here?"
"You're asking me?" Takida reacted and laughed. "What do I know about this stuff? You should have mentioned earlier what you needed because obviously you brought the wrong person." Bakugo didn't seem to appreciate her reaction.
"Fine. If you don't want to be helpful, then just tell me what brand you're using. I'll just search it myself." "What brand I'm using?" "Seriously? What brand?" She looked bewildered.
Yes. He was a bit pissed already as Takida was not just being unhelpful. She wasn't even trying to hide her amusement. "Kachan, I don't wear perfumes or colognes. What do I know about this stuff?"
"What are you talking about?"
He leaned over and smelled her temple very near her ear. Takida was not expecting him to do that, and was taken a bit off guard when he sniffed her and his breath touched her ear. "Hey!" She stepped back a little, but he took another step forward and sniffed her again. And before she could step back further, he held her head and this time, his nose definitely touched her ear, and it sent a sensation down her neck.
"That scent. You always smell like strawberry milkshake. What brand is that?" he said.
"Strawberry milkshake? I told you I'm not using any perfume," she insisted.
"Hey you, extra! Smell her." He called on one of the female perfume staff.
The perfume staff looked hesitant,
Now move it, extras!
but Takida, who was getting irritated as well, nodded her to do so. "Go on." And so the staff did.
"Now bring me the perfume she's using,"
Bakugo demanded. "But, sir, she smells soap." Bakugo's eyes started to twitch at this point.
"Okay, then give me the soap that smells like that,"
he said, slowly losing his patience. The female staff hurriedly left and went back with the bath soap.
I don't want that piece of garbage!
Bakugo complained, totally unimpressed. "That's the soap our family uses." "Exactly, because that's the soap your mom always refills our supplies with," Takida explained. "The same brand of soap we both bring to our dorms."
"So you're saying I smell like strawberry milkshake?"
Bakugo asked angrily, his patience totally gone by now. "No, you smell like oak wood." Takida was surprised at how naturally she said that. But beyond the burnt caramel smell of nitroglycerin, he did have that faint, distinct smell of oak wood.
"Kida, I don't use perfume, much less an oak wood scent."
"And I don't use one as well, much less a strawberry milkshake scent." They were obviously irritated at each other by now. The perfume staff, who was caught in the middle of this chaos, sniffed both of them and said, You actually both smell like the same soap." The two turned at her slowly with a grilling look.
And now you die.
The perfume lady terrifyingly said, "Why don't you just tell me what scent you need and I'll get it for you?" They both replied,
"Lavender." "Lavender."
For the next weeks, Takida had been continuously training before class hours of Tuesday and Thursdays. Most of the time, Kaminari, Sero, Kirishima, and Ashido would be there, but not Bakugo. Sero said that he had been joining Kamihara for group studies. Kirishima told her that they might change their schedules as well, so they could join Bakugo during group studies, because they need his help in mastering some of the subjects. To which Takida replied, I see. Okay. That night, she got a message from Bakugo. Kida, the morning group study looks like it's going to stick. Could you move your quirk training to Monday and Wednesday, then join us for group studies on Tuesdays and Thursdays? She checked her calendar and saw that it was possible, but she didn't feel like adjusting it just because that was the schedule that fitted Kamihara. She felt irritated just thinking of it. So she texted back, not possible this week. I have Wednesday combo quirk training with Shotokan. I'll try next week. I can tell Todoroki to move your schedule, Bakugo replied. Don't! Takida panicked, knowing full well that Shoto would simply say okay. I'm the one who asked for this schedule. I don't want to bother him on such a short notice. I'll just check on him for next week. Next week came, but she never asked Shoto to reschedule, and Bakugo never followed up on her about it too. And so the days that followed, she had been seeing him less and less. Even after class, when Bakugo would normally pick her up to do afternoon schoolwork, had dwindled significantly. A lot of times she would stay 30 minutes longer, thinking that their class was just got held up by Aizawa. She looked at her watch and saw that classes had ended 20 minutes ago. She didn't wait for another 10 minutes. She picked up her bag and went to Hound Dog Station, where the school kept their well-trained guard dogs. Mizuyo, you've been visiting a lot lately. Bakugo still not with you? Sensei Hound Dog noticed. Just me, Sensei. May I walk Pocho today? Takida smiled. He'll be happy to see you. They jogged around the school ground for almost 2 hours, Pocho just matching her pace. When they reached the top of the hill, Takida was already panting from the uphill run. She pulled out a bottle of water, gave Pocho some, then gulped for herself. I miss him, Takida sighed deeply. But he doesn't miss me though. You think I'm being weird for feeling this? She looked at Pocho, but all he did was lick her face. Takida laughed at the affection and rubbed his head. I guess that's a yes. The only time I get to see him now is during our work study at Endeavor's agency, and we don't even have time to talk there. Him being one of UA's big three are always out on a mission with Shoto and Izuku.
When I miss you, I go back into my phone to that night you let me know that you still care.
On the last Friday of September, she made no bento boxes. When she entered lunch rush, she saw Kaminari waving vigorously at her. Bento Friday! Then he looked at her from head to toe, looking for the bento boxes, and repeated, Bento Friday! Takida smiled. I'm sorry, guys. You're gonna have to miss it today. Oh man, I was looking forward to it. Kirishima whined. You've been busy? Bakugo asked. Yeah, quite a bit, she lied. The truth was, she didn't have the energy to do it. In fact, she didn't have the energy to sit with Bakugo today and watch Kamihara eat ice cream the whole lunchtime. I'll grab you your usuals, Bakugo said and stood up. Kamihara and the rest went with him. You must have had a rough week, Takida. I'll get you ice cream then. It will definitely perk you up, Kirishima said. And just like that, Takida was alone on the table along with her thoughts. She should feel grateful that the guys were concerned for her, but somehow she was not in the mood to be perking, and no ice cream was going to cure that. Bakugo got her katsudon. He snapped the chopsticks in two and placed a tray in front of her. Kirishima got her matcha ice cream. Matcha? Bakugo glared at the ice cream. Kida doesn't eat matcha.
You idiot!
Kirishima scratched his head apologetically. Really? I thought you eat everything. Sorry, he added. Bakugo gritted his teeth, stood up, and lined up for ice cream again. But Takida stopped him. Kachan, it's okay. I really don't feel like having ice cream anyway. But thanks. Bakugo looked at her, trying to read her thoughts. Takida just avoided his eyes. Takida attempted to swallow her food, but the view in front of her, Bakugo and Kamihara, was not helping at all. So she looked into space instead. Stop playing with your food. She heard Bakugo in her imagination, then realized he was talking to her in real life. Well, more like scolding her. Oh, I'm sorry. She then took a spoonful of rice and shoved it into her mouth in an attempt to catch up before the bell rings. But it was way too big. She ended up coughing. Kida! Bakugo stood from his chair thinking she was choking. Since she still can't talk, she gave thumbs up to signify that she was fine. Then slowly she munched on the mouthful of pork and rice inside her mouth. You scared the hell out of me, Denki said. She made a peace sign on her hand and held it up to Denki as she tried to swallow another spoonful of pork and rice. A few minutes before first bell, Takeda was still not able to finish her meal, and she was not about to force herself to take another spoon. Her stomach was just not up to it. She shoved the bowl back to her tray and laid down her chopsticks. Let's go, guys. We still have to change to our costumes for this afternoon, Saru said, not waiting for the first bell to ring. As they all picked up their trays, Bakugo grabbed Takeda's arms. Hey, what's wrong with you? Me? Nothing. Since when did you think I wouldn't know that you're lying? Bakugo said. I don't know what you mean, she lied again. Takeda was saved from lying further when the first bell finally rang. Nothing's wrong, she insisted. Come on, we're all gonna be late. He let her go and said, let's talk after class.
Later that afternoon, Aizawa finally dismissed Takeda's class. He handled their special lesson on rescue.
Alright, that's it for class today. I'm sure you're all studying constantly, right? Don't forget to keep training. The written exam is only one element. There's also the practical portion to worry about. Good luck.
Takeda can't wait to run out of her classroom and straight to her dorm. This was the one time she had no plans of attempting to wait for Bakugo. Talk? What am I going to tell him? I have no reason to act like this. I can't talk to him. Not about this. I don't even know what's this. Oh gosh. Bakugo's class finished their exercise late. It was a battle training with class 3B. He looked at his phone and saw that it's 8 p.m. He changed clothes quickly and messaged Takeda that he was on his way to her dorm. Takeda saw the notification from Bakugo, but she didn't dare open the message. She hastily said her goodnights to her classmates and dashed up the stairs straight to her room. He was not allowed to go inside someone's room. Visitors were allowed up to the common areas only. So she locked her balcony door, closed her curtains, and turned off her lights. She was afraid he would circle around and catch her from there. 8:15. Why is she not reading my texts? He thought to himself as he continued to walk towards her dorm. Hello, sir, Mr. Dynamite. The door opened before he could even knock. I'm a fan. Do you do autographs or selfies? Bakugo gritted his teeth. Where's Kida? The small guy who opened the door took no offense on Bakugo's complete indifference to his fan mode excitement. It was actually one of the things his fans liked about him, his hot-headedness. She said her goodnights already and went to her room, her classmate said. He left without a word and circled the side of their dorm. He looked at the second floor where her room was. He could easily scale it up, but hesitated, because her room lights were turned off. His thoughts started to jumble. She probably really is resting. She didn't even eat lunch. No, she didn't look sick earlier. She looked like a liar. What's going on with her? She didn't even want to adjust her training schedule. I already asked Todoroki and he was absolutely fine with it. Obviously, it was her decision not to move it. Ah, Kida. He walked back to his dorm, frustrated. That weekend, the Baku squad decided to go to the mall to replenish their personal dorm stuff. Mina, Kirishima, and Zero were already by the school gate when Bakugo and Kamihara arrived. Denki was also running to catch up.
What took so long? Why are you so mean?
Let's go, come on. Kira's not coming? Bakugo asked. She sent a message just now, Kirishima said, and continued by mimicking her voice. Something a lot more special than you guys came up, so I'm teaching you today. Yeah, she also sent a message for some of the stuff she needs, and in all caps she said, Get money from Bakugo. Denki then gave an evil laugh. I'm gonna add some extra service fee. Bakugo took out his phone and read her messages. She didn't sound dramatic at all, like how Denki and Kirishima said. She was direct to the point. Gotta pass today. Please buy me 2 sets. XY soap, XY shampoo, and XY toothpaste. Kachan, 1 set's for you. Your mom sent the allowance. Thanks. How about my allowance? And my monthly hair dye. Then a new message popped into his phone. It was a personal message from Kida. Sorry I slept early last night. All is good, Kachan. Nothing to worry.
Yeah, sure.
Come on, guys, Mina said. When they got to the mall, they all decided to play some Pop the Balloons dart game. The winner gets to choose a stuffed toy. Bakugo saw a sky blue puppy and thought of Takida right away. It was her favorite color and animal. I bet you I'll be the first to get the biggest stuffed animal, Kirishima exclaimed.
In your dreams, moron. Just wait! My new special gear is gonna blow your mind!
One round was all Bakugo needed to get the blue dog. The vendor handed it to him while Kaminari and Kirishima went for a second round. That's so cute, Bakugo heard Kamihara say. He looked at her and realized that she was expecting it to be hers. And it was just the natural thing at that time. They were going out, so of course he'd give it to her. It wouldn't be right to take it all the way to UA and give it to Takida. He laughed at himself for even thinking of it. He handed her the prize and Kamihara hugged it happily. On the 3rd round, Kaminari won a 5-inch stuffed toy and Kirishima got a 1-foot-tall pink toy which Mina claimed for herself. Strike a pose and hold up your prizes. Sarah then snapped a group picture and sent it to their group chat. Let's make Takida regret for not coming with us. Bakugo didn't want the picture sent. She obviously had a lot in her mind. Although she seemed pretty normal towards the others, so maybe he had done something wrong to her? When they got back to the dorm, he checked on their group chat. Takida still had not read their messages. He walked Kamihara to her dorm building, then turned to walk towards Takida's to drop her toiletries. Hello, sir, Mr. Dynamite. The door opened once again before he could knock. Can I have an autograph or a selfie? But Bakugo only asked, Kida? Oh, she hasn't come back yet, her classmate answered. Come back? You mean she's out of campus? He yelled. Yes, she was asked to go to Hawk's agency, her classmate added. Bakugo checked the time. It's 7:30 in the evening. Hawk's agency was hours away from school. He took his phone to call her, but her classmate interrupted him. Don't bother calling her. She was in a hurry and left her phone charging over there. Bakugo left her dorm frustrated once again. He was still holding Takida's essentials. As soon as he got to their dorm, he called on Tokoyami.
Tokoyami!
I need Hawk's number. Okay, here you go. Is everything okay? Tokoyami asked. But instead of answering, Bakugo dialed Hawk's number. After one ring, Hawks picked up the call. Number 2 hero. It's Bakugo. Dynamite, what a surprise! Hawks happily replied. Mizuyo is still not back in school. Is she still there? Mizuyo left 5 minutes ago, Hawks replied.
5 minutes ago? You allowed her to leave that late? You think your agency and the school's within the same city? It will be almost midnight when she gets here, and that's way past anyone's curfew.
Bakugo was pissed.
Calm down. You sound like a doting boyfriend.
Hawks cheerfully joked him.
I've never been calmer. Can't you tell?
Are you worried about her safety? She's one capable girl. I don't think safety should be an issue. That's not what I meant. And of course I know she can manage by herself. Bakugo was totally irritated by now. Hawks only laughed at him. Don't worry, my hero Dynamite. Mizuyo Shonen went back to UA with Principal Nezu. He was here for a meeting and told Mizuyo to just fly back with him after, he said. Based on GPS, their plane already left Fukuoka and will land your school at approximately 8:45 p.m. He ended it with, "Is there anything else I could help you with?" Bakugo let out an angry sigh with a sigh of relief. That's all. It was only 8 o'clock, but he wanted to catch her this time, so he went back to her dorm and decided to wait there for her arrival. True to Hawk's words, by around 8:50, he could see Takida coming. "Kachan," she said softly, and looking a bit surprised to see him. Kachan stood up to confront her. He was angry the whole time he was waiting for her. He was so confused on the way she was acting lately, and how could she have left and not even mention she'd be going all the way to Fukuoka? He was ready to berate her, but as soon as she called his name, his anger mellowed down and he was just happy to see her after she avoided to talk to him over at lunch. So instead, he gave her the essentials he asked them to buy. "Here's your stuff." "Thank you," she said, and took the package. "You better head back, it's almost curfew." He probably had 2 minutes left before the curfew warning bell rings. "We still haven't talked," he said. "We are talking," Takida said. "No, don't play with words." Then the bell rang. You're always safe by the bell." He didn't say anything else. He just stomped off and went back to his dorm.
Early October of the same year.
Cementus announced, "We will be doing a special exercise today." Takida's class had changed into their hero costume and were currently at ground beta. And to help us with today's training, we have UA's Big Three, Todoroki Shoto, Midoriya Izuku, and Bakugo Katsuki. Everyone's eyes got big. In front of them were the top students of UA. They all know how much they had contributed in winning the war against All for One. And although students at UA didn't show it, many of them were fans. So to have this learning experience from them was really something to maximize and remember. Takida, however, felt like running away. She had managed to avoid Bakugo for the last few days. Yet, here they were. She kept her head down, but she was very certain that he was looking at her. If his quirk is to melt a person by looking, she would have evaporated by now. "The rules are simple," Samantha said. "They're the villains and you're the heroes. They will cause mayhem at ground beta, but you have to hold your ground. There will be 5 dummies in the activity area, and you have to save all of them. Like in the provisional exam, you will have 3 buttons around your bodies. If your opponent was able to light all 3, then you're out. Same goes for the big 3 villains. Alright, heroes, on to your position." Takida was assigned as offense. In the second year hero course, Takida was eyed to be one of the future big 3. The class talked of more strategies, and before they knew it, the exercise had begun.
Bakugo, you take care of the group attacks. They will surely let Takida fight alone. Like me, we work better outside the group. So Midoriya and I will capture her first, Todoroki said. But Bakugo has a different plan. No, leave Kida to me. Okay, but do it quickly.
Don't give me orders!
Bakugo wasted no time. He attacked Takida as soon as he found her. Takida in turn lashed him with water whips.
Oh, don't even try it!
It was an exchange of fire and water explosions.
So you're still not going to tell me what's wrong?
Bakugo yelled, and followed it with a big explosion launched at her.
There's nothing to say!
Takida yelled back.
Stop lying to me! Why are you avoiding me? I am not avoiding you! Oh really now?
He said sarcastically.
You didn't want to go training with me. You didn't want group studies. And lately, you don't feel like eating with me either.
He yelled as he released another big explosion. Takida was overwhelmed by his attacks, but his words even had far stronger impacts for her to lose concentration. Was he right? She thought. Am I the one causing the gap between us? I've been too busy feeling sorry for myself, and yet he was actually making efforts to spend time together. Just the one refusing it. Bakugo pushed her all the way to the ground and said,
You got a problem with me?
It woke Takida from her thoughts. They were both panting at this time, but he got her trapped already to the ground. He locked her arms with his and her feet with his.
Talk to me, Kida. Did I do something wrong?
His voice didn't sound mad anymore. It sounded desperate. Takida finally looked at him, but was unable to reply anything.
Bakugo! Let's pack things up! Todoroki yelled from the other side of the arena. Yeah, I'm almost done here, Bakugo yelled back.
He looked at Takida trying to find some answers, but nothing came. Your battle skills are totally off today. You're out. He then lighted her 3 buttons and left. Takida watched him go. Her heart was pounding as his words echoed back and forth in her head. Did I do something wrong? She closed her eyes and whispered to nobody. No, Katchan. You didn't do anything wrong.
Singing's easier said than done. Piercing the pain just to have it sung. For someone to say it's already been done. Oh, I don't know who I am.
After the battle, Class 2A chatted about their experience in the changing room. They're really strong, right? And their teamwork was something else too. Didn't matter if it was 20 versus 3. Unless you made it easy for Dynamite, Mizuyo, one told. Takida scratched her head and gave a shameful laugh. Sorry guys, I'm not really myself today. Nah, I watched the big screen as soon as I was out. You're both so intense. I thought you're gonna kill each other out there. Takida pretended to laugh it off. I better face Katchan and settle this once and for all, Takida told herself. So from the changing room, she headed towards Bakugo's dorm. But Kaminari said he had not come back yet. He thought he stayed back to hang out with her since Midoriya and Todoroki were already in their rooms. He invited her in the living room to wait, but Takida declined. I'll just wait for him outside, she said. Denki offered to wait with her, but Takida said that he should get back inside and finish his assignment. She noticed him holding out a pen and a book when he opened the door. In Takida's dorm, she hasn't come back from the changing room yet, Takida's classmate told Bakugo. Bakugo just nodded and left. He went straight to Takida's dorm after he changed back from his costume. After their battle and the exercise, he felt bad for yelling at her so much. He just wanted her to open up, but he was really never good at things like this. As he walked slowly to his own dorm, he realized that he had been pestering her these past few weeks, pressuring her to speak up and talk to him, but he had been unsuccessful. The more I pushed myself to her, the more she took steps back away from me. Maybe I should give her a little space, he thought. As he neared his dorm, he saw Takida by the porch. He tucked his hands inside his pocket as he approached her. Kida, Kachan. They talked at the same time. I'll talk first, Takida said. But it took her a full minute or two to speak again. Luckily, Bakugo had no intention of interrupting her. I don't know how else to say this. I really don't know the right words. She was facing him, but she couldn't bring her head up to look at him. But she tried to continue. Bakugo was being patient even after her long pauses. Or maybe he didn't know what to say either. She took a deep breath and finally started. Since we were kids, in my world, it has always been just you and me. You're my first friend, my only real friend. Whenever I'm at my happiest, it's you I want to share it with. When I'm lonely, it's only you I could make myself vulnerable to. From the pettiest things to the most important stuff, it's you I'm with. Her hands had gone white at this moment. She had them clasped together so tight that the blood had probably stopped flowing already. Then she said, Then Enya Kamihara came into picture. I know we need to grow up. The real world is far more bigger than the one I created in my mind. Of course, cannot be just me and you for the rest of our lives. But I wasn't prepared for that. She looked at him and continued. You've done nothing wrong. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I ever made you feel that way. I was the one being immature and selfish. I caused all this unnecessary trouble. I'm really sorry, Kachan. Her eyes were now burning, but she should not cry. She was trying to fix what she broke. Bakugo will definitely blame himself if she let one tear get out of her eye. After another long pause, when it looked like Takida won't be saying anything anymore, Bakugo asked, Are you uncomfortable with this? With Enya and me? Because if you are... No, that's not what I'm going for. Takida cut him off right away. I'm not here to make you choose between anyone. Our friendship shouldn't feel like it's a prison of some sort. I'm just... She took a deep breath and said, I'm just afraid I was gonna lose you. That's nonsense, you idiot. You're not going to lose me. And you'll always be the same Kida to me. The last sentence hit Takida like an arrow through her heart. Always the same Kida? She echoed back softly. It was so soft, she was not even sure if Kachan heard her despite being a feet away. She didn't understand why hearing it would cause her to lose her breath, or why it suddenly made her heart heavy. But it did. So heavy she couldn't breathe.
You but afraid what I'll lose if you know what the truth is. You're so special. You mean everything to me. I'll pretend if this is the way things must be.
But other than pain, she was confused. Wasn't that what she wanted to hear? She had never felt this kind of pain. It was different. Different when she lost Nana, or when her mother stood her up. Kida. Kachan softly called her name. She must be confusing him right now, she thought. But always the same Kida? It was the best way to end their talk. All should have gone alright after that, but for her, it didn't. Katsuki? It was Kamihara. Oh, Mizuyo, I'm sorry, I'll come back. We're done talking anyway, I should go. Kida hastily turned to put on a big smile and walked past them, making sure that her eyes were hidden. When she was on the safe, dark distance, She looked back and waved at them. I'll see you tomorrow. It's Thursday group study, right? Then she walked as casually as she could. But when she was certain they couldn't see her anymore, she ran as fast as she could. But her tears were flowing faster. She buried her face crying on her pillow that night. Kachan's word kept ringing in her head. Is that what I wanted to be forever? To be the same Kida in his eyes? Is that why I'm crying? Is that why it hurts? Because I actually want something more? She wanted to hit herself so hard. What are you doing, Kida? Why are you suddenly wanting for more? He's your friend, and he has guaranteed you that title already. And now you want something more? Don't be greedy, Mizuyo Takida. Takida inhaled and repeatedly told herself, don't be greedy.
I don't know what I'd do, 'cause I'd rather be with you than be with anybody else. Can't wait until the day when I can call you my own. Until then you're my best friend. I'll just call you my best friend.
The reading version of books 3 to 5 are already uploaded in my playlist. As for the listening version, I'll put a link once it's uploaded. Thank you!